who's actually out there on the road. It is an extremely exclusive club, and you basically need incredibly deep pockets to get in. In the US, you've got Google's Waymo and GM's Cruise. Over in China, it's companies like Baidu and Pony.ai. This is not a startup game, folks. This is a battle of titans with billions and billions of dollars to spend.
Now, what's really interesting here is the nuance. Even inside that tiny club, not all operations are created equal. After some pretty big setbacks for their competitors, if you strip away all the press releases and the marketing noise, Waymo is pretty clearly the leader right now, running a service that's both stable and operating at a pretty meaningful scale.
So you might be asking, if the rollout is this slow, why are investors still pouring billions into this industry? Well, it's because the long-term forces driving this change are pretty much seen as inevitable. Let's break down the 3 big reasons why. It really boils down to 3 fundamental, just undeniable truths. First up, economics. Human labor is the single biggest cost in transportation, period. Take the driver out and you change the entire financial model. Second, safety. Humans, well, we make mistakes. A lot of them. And third, the technology itself is finally becoming affordable.
And let's just hang on that safety point for a second. An incredible 90% of all vehicle accidents are caused by human error. Distraction, being tired, bad judgment, you name it. The promise of autonomous vehicles is to just drastically reduce that number, which is, you could imagine, a massive incentive for cities and regulators.
And this chart on tech costs, it is just stunning. LiDAR, that's the laser-based radar that kind of acts as the eyes for these cars, it used to cost as much as a luxury sedan. We're talking $75,000 for one unit. Today, that cost has collapsed to around $1,000. This one thing, this right here, takes robotaxis from being just a science experiment to a product you can actually deploy.
Okay, so the long-term case is strong, for sure. So why aren't our streets just flooded with robotaxis right this second? Well, because there are 3 major and often really underestimated roadblocks that are slowing this revolution down to a crawl. The first one is a big one: regulations. Cities and governments are, pretty understandably, extremely cautious. They move slowly. A single high-profile accident can get an entire fleet grounded, and that can delay expansion not by months, but maybe even by years.
Next up is infrastructure. See, robotaxis don't just operate in a vacuum. They need this massive support system around them. Incredibly detailed high-def maps, super reliable 5G for all that data, and a whole network of charging and maintenance depots. Most cities and countries, they just don't have this stuff ready to go. And the final roadblock is the sticker price of the vehicle itself. Even with those cheaper sensors we talked about, the total package, the car, all the computers, the backup systems, is still just extraordinarily expensive.
Just look at these numbers. A single robotaxi today costs somewhere between $150,000 and $300,000. To truly compete with, say, owning a car or taking a traditional taxi, that price has to drop below $80,000. And as you can see, we're not even close to that right now.
So, given all these roadblocks, it's really no surprise that progress isn't happening uniformly across the globe. What's starting to emerge is a world of 2 speeds, or maybe more accurately 3 speeds when it comes to robotaxi adoption.
So you've got the fast lane. This is for a few select, wealthy cities in the US, China, and the UAE, where they have both the money and the political will to push this thing forward. Then Europe is kind of in the medium lane, mostly because they have stricter regulations that are going to ensure a much more cautious rollout. And then you have the slow lane. This is for a lot of the developing world, India, Southeast Asia, Africa, for reasons that are going to become really clear in just a second.
So why this huge difference in speed? Well, it all boils down to one core concept: unpredictable environments. The autonomous tech we have today absolutely thrives on predictability. Clear lane markings, orderly traffic, solid infrastructure. But regions with chaotic traffic patterns and less developed roads, they're just way too complex for the current generation of robotaxis to navigate safely.
Okay, so this might all be sounding a little daunting. The market is developing slowly, and it's totally dominated by giants. But that brings us to the most important part of this whole explainer. Where can you find real, accessible opportunities in this space?
Let's just be realistic for a second. The odds of starting a company from scratch to compete with Waymo or Cruise are basically zero. It takes billions of dollars. But that is not where the game is. The real opportunity is in the value chain, the whole ecosystem of technologies and services that support the main players.
So here are 5 really high leverage areas where the real action is. First, perception datasets. That's basically teaching cars how to drive in snow or monsoons. Second, simulation, creating these virtual worlds to safely test out dangerous scenarios. Third, hardware, finding clever ways to make sensors cheaper and better. Fourth is fleet management software, building the complex logistics to manage a whole fleet of autonomous cars. And finally, and this one is a big one, autonomous add-on kits.
In fact, these add-on kits are where we're going to see the first real wave of autonomy hit markets that aren't quite ready for robotaxis. Think smaller, more controlled environments, robots in warehouses, delivery bots on sidewalks, automation in mining and farming, or even self-driving carts on big corporate or university campuses. This isn't some far-off future. This is happening now.
So what's the road ahead actually look like? Let's be realistic. Today, robotaxis are still a niche service in a few controlled cities. Within the next decade, we'll see that expand to more organized markets. But for the dream of a robotaxi on any street corner in any city in the world, we are likely looking at 2035 or even beyond. The revolution is coming, for sure, but it's a marathon, not a sprint.
And that leaves us with one last thought. You know, just like in the original gold rush, the biggest fortunes were often made not by the miners, but by the people who were selling the picks and shovels. The biggest winners in this robotaxi revolution might not be the ones building the cars, but the ones building the critical technologies that make them possible.